Hey guys, welcome to the UpStreamLife.com. I'm your founder and editor, Vishal Krishna. And today I've got a friend with me who I haven't seen in 5 years. They've been changing India's ecosystem with drones, but they're not just a drone company. I'm going to introduce my friend now. Vipul, how are you?
Perfect. How have you been?
I've been great. What's your company called again?
AEREO.
AEREO, right? Why are drones a mainstream today?
Lots of reason, but I would say because they improve productivity.
Yes.
That's the main reason why people are looking at them. And then they give you the ability to look really far and deep inside. So that's another reason why people are preferring using drones for a lot of the action on the ground.
So they empower people?
Yes.
And they also help in sustainability.
And then they have served 360 degree across different segments. Look at defense, farmlands, agriculture, healthcare, logistics, everywhere they are there.
What's your website?
Aereo.io.
Go check out aereo.io, but you have to enjoy this interview. But before this interview, I want to call out my sponsors. A shout out to Finverse. Finverse is an upskilling, reskilling app for all you students who love finance. Whether you're a guitarist, whether you're an artist, whether you are just a BCom student, you have to go upskill yourself in finance because finance is what drives the world. So enjoy this interview with Vipul, and the company is called AEREO. Thanks, Vipul.
Perfect. Looking forward to it.
Enjoy it, guys. Vipul, how are you?
Fantastic.
Thank you for being on my podcast. I'm really amazed.
Pleasure.
Thank you for that. And 5 years we haven't met.
Right.
A lot has changed. In between, COVID just destroyed those 2 years of not meeting anybody. But what has stayed is drones. Drones are mainstream, and your company has done well. You're called AEREO now,
Yeah.
right? Tell me just for the benefit of the audience, why are drones a mainstream today? If you could tell us that.
Well, there are lots of reasons for that. If you look at when we met, right, people were still trying to figure out how to use them for really reasonable applications. And most of the applications were more inclined towards defense and homeland security. So when COVID came in place, right, there was a couple of certain set of events happened. People realized the value of automation, one. Second, people realized the potential of evaluating or analyzing an area from distance. Right. So one thing in which was done in the COVID duration was that a lot of homeland security guys, especially police in different places in the country, they ended up using drones to monitor on the crowd movement and then maintain that social distancing and curfews which were there. People also used drones to make announcements around the cities if they found people violating the lockdowns. Right, and then some places even it was used to spray, let's say, disinfectants across different locations. So that allowed basically the administrators and the government to understand the value of a flying object which can carry different kinds of payload. On the industrial side, what happened, when you can do more work with less people, that too remotely, then you can maintain your business continuity with lesser people on the ground and let the people basically spend more time on the data rather than being on the field and trying to understand the situation, when a machine can really understand and analyze that situation. So all of this basically propelled the adoption of drone. That's one. Second thing, if you look at the global phenomena which were happening parallelly, there were a few war situations in which drones were very effectively used, and I'm especially pointing out to the Azerbaijan and Armenia war which happened, where a smaller country with a smaller army could really dominate over a country with larger army with larger.
Armenia is smaller.
Yeah, yes. And it did only because they had a fleet of drones which were very effective. So that gave a very completely different realization to the entire global ecosystem that the kind of potential drones can deliver. So what happened in India parallelly? In India, there was a huge set of bottlenecks around the regulatory ecosystem. A long list of approvals one has to go through to obtain permissions to fly drones, and we were also dealing with those. So there was a lot of red tapeism. The ease of business was not there. Almost 25 different approvals were needed for a business to survive in the drone ecosystem. Those who were old in the business, they learned how to maneuver through that, but still were spending a lot of time, which was becoming a deterrent for the scalability of the companies. Somehow, because of the strategic value of the drone realized by the government, they started investigating that, does India have the capability? If we have the capability, how can we ensure that we build a Atmanirbhar story on the drone, and over the years to come, we don't depend on the overseas companies and foreign countries to basically get the access to this technology. That allowed them to understand the potential of the drones not only for defense application, but also for the civilian application and industrial application. that opened the eyes of the key decision makers in the government. And I'm talking about the topmost offices in the government, which were not that much invested into drones at that point of time. I'm talking about 2018-19 era, a 1920 type period. So when they invested time and did their own analysis, they realized that it's a huge industry to be unlocked in the country, and we have a talent pool which can really develop those indigenous capabilities, and the benefit will be delivered not only to the Jawans on the border, but the farmers on the field as well, right? The rural community as well. So all of a sudden there was a decision made that let's liberalize this sector. And another important event which happened is that the government started talking to the startups, because you cannot open up a new sector without making startups the stakeholder, because it were these startups which are making this solution, not the bigger companies at that point. Even today, the startups are the dominant players in the drone ecosystem. We have now 200 plus companies in different forms and factors in the drone ecosystem, but there are a handful of them which were really doing indigenous technology development. So with the inputs received from the startups and some very really committed people in the government, the whole policy was revived. So in August 2021, the new rules were introduced. With those new rules, couple of things happened. 25 permissions were filtered down to only 5. Things were made very simple, like automobile related rules. One has to get a drone certified so that it is safe enough. One has to get a license as a pilot to operate the drone, so you know that it is in the safe hands which knows how to manage the machine, right, and how not to do an unsafe operation. And then they also unlocked the area of the country. They said 90% of the airspace of the country is now available for free drone flying as far as you have a certified drone and a certified pilot. Reason being is that unless you nourish the local ecosystem and adopt the technology, you cannot propel the technology development. And if you keep the local market restricted, then the global market is not going to wait for India to, let's say, liberalize the sector. They will go with their own pace. So we will fall behind. That is exactly what happened in the past with many other sectors, where we were slow in adopting that technology, and that led to so much of struggle to create and scale a business that we never got the ownership of the technology. We never created the ownership of the technology, and we became dependent on the overseas players. So that's what the government could see as a story building again in drone sector, and they said, no, not this time. So a very new set of fresh ideas were brought on the table, policies were made, certification schemes were made. Not only that, they even came up with a production linked incentive for drone with upwards of 20% benefit. All that when you put together, it basically led to an explosion in the sector. Since August 21, there have been a significant growth in the sector, from few tens of companies to 200 plus service providers. The most aggressive set of job openings or voluminous job openings are now coming in the drone ecosystem. And some of the programs were initiated that have been able to solve at least problems which were dated 2 decades back. Like, people have been trying to solve those problems, and governments have been trying to solve those problems from last 2 decades. And drones are now able to solve, and half of them have been solved in less than 2 years. Right?
Like land records.
Like land records. One of these schemes is Swamitva scheme, where there is a program by the government called Swamitva scheme, which envisages to map all the 660,000 villages and their residential land using drones.
And the khatas, right?
And they create a fresh land record. Yes. Every khata which exists will be updated. And actually not updated, it didn't exist.
The titles.
Yeah, I mean, there were no titles created, because the first set of land records were created by Britishers, and they created only for the cultivated land. Absolutely. Reason being is because they wanted to collect taxes from that. Absolutely. They were never worried about.
This is created in the 1820s onwards. You are absolutely
Correct.
Right. Once they had a firm foothold, they had a problem of collecting taxes.
Correct.
And therefore only cultivated land was recorded.
Was also of relevance to them. So they never cared about public right. Now, if you go back and take out those maps from the, let's say, district authorities, you will find that there is a small patch which is vacant in between on that sheet of paper. That is the patch which represents the residential land where people live. And it has expanded, because in those last 100 years, the population has exploded. People have expanded their residential area. There is no idea where that is. Now you're talking about 70% of the population, which is more than 1.25 billion people living in rural India, who don't have proper ownership of their own asset. And their next 5 generations are going to struggle because of that. Now look at the other side of the story. You have land which is much larger than the small 1,000 square feet apartment which you might have in tier 1 and tier 2 cities. You have acres of land and you cannot get a credit limit from the bank on that land because there is no proper record to prove that this is undisputed.
No titles, right? Again.
Not clear titles. Yes. That is one problem number one. Now problem number two is, if you go and look at the statistics of the court cases which exist, more than 70% of these court cases are civil court cases.
Yes.
And out of that, more than 60-70% of the cases in this civil court is from the rural India land disputes. Because again, there is no clear demarcation of boundaries and titles. Families got divided. Then people, because of their social, economic or caste structure,
correct,
they have been able to overpower people who are weaker section of the society. There is no record to prove that this land belongs to whom. It has been always disputed, and the onus of solving the dispute and taking a final decision is on an individual. Some places in the country they are called patwaris. Okay. Absolutely. And you can always manipulate those decisions because it's an individual's decision that where your land lies. So now what is happening? You fly a drone. Earlier it was taking about 4 to 5 days to map one village Abadi area. We call it Abadi area technically in the government's language. And let's say an investment of about 20,000 rupees per village. I'm going on a very optimistic side. Now, if you do it with the drones, you actually solve it in close to 6,000 rupees and you do 5 villages in one day.
That's the speed and scale at which.
That's the speed and scale. So last 2 decades, they have been trying to solve it under a program called Digital Land Record Mapping project. So they haven't been successful in different geographies. Because of manual process involved, a lot of people dependency. There is no standard, there is no process.
Go along with the demarcations.
Yes, standardization is not there. Still, you have to go to a land corner and then let people decide which corner belongs to whom. And then manipulation happens. There is no evidence to suggest that whether this point which was taken or coordinate which was taken on the ground belongs to that corner of the plot or not. Right. So what drones did, you fly faster, you generate data at very high resolution. We're talking about 2.53 centimeter resolution, which is 150 times better than any satellite map existing in the world, and an accuracy of 10 centimeters. So you point a location on your, let's say, map of that area generated by the drone.
Like this room itself, it can pinpoint.
You can pinpoint those locations with 10 centimeter level accuracy. So when you have that, you have first of all geo coordinates. So even if the entire village gets flooded tomorrow, you still can locate your land. So if the geography changes, doesn't matter because the coordinates are still going to be same. Second, you have the proper image of that land, so you have evidences associated with the data itself.
Now, will you tell me this? Panchayats, will they agree to the government now when the government comes and says, this is how we've demarcated your village basis?
So again, this is a collaborative work which is happening. It's a collaborative work. The system has been designed in such a way that this is not a unilateral decision, whose land is what. Now, if you want to benefit from your ownership, you have to resolve the dispute today.
Yes.
Right? You have to decide which land belongs to you. And anyways, you have a record which says that you have X acres in your ownership or square feet in your ownership. So if you mark wrong, your measurement will not match.
Yes.
Somehow the measurement has to match. As far as you and your neighbors are agreeing on the boundary and your measurements are matching, you're good to go.
This is wonderful.
Right? And they have to agree because if they don't agree, it will be declared disputed and you will not be able to get all these benefits which are going to get created as a downstream impact, financial benefits or anything else. Now, every piece of land is also getting linked with the Aadhaar of the owner. So you sell, purchase, divide, merge, everything will be now linked to Aadhaar history. Generations to come, you will be able to trace the family tree, the land divisions and everything, disputes gone.
Vipul, you have to tell me how consistent will we be in this? This is, I mean, you've said with so much clarity with the mainstream nature of drones today. And this is it. I mean, land records, we need it. Otherwise, 200-year-old disputes, people don't know where we are, what do we own, right? And especially in rural sites, there's a problem. How consistent will we? The drones give you these images and you guys use the tech to define what is what. Will the government now push this as a mainstream continuously? Will this happen, or is that a challenge that you still see? The reason I want to ask you this question early is because you laid it out so well that apart from defense, we also need it for land record. We have to sort our agricultural records, right? Go away from the cultivated land. People need to know how much personal property they own.
Already this has scaled up to next level.
Have they?
Okay. So more than 2 lakh villages have been mapped already.
Right. We have 600,000 villages, 660. So we've done 1/3, yes.
Yes. So 1/3 is done. 200,000 is already finished. More than 150,000 villages have got their maps ready. More than 100,000 villages have got the cards, property cards distributed to the owners. So, and out of that, we as a company have mapped close to 40,000 villages in the last 2 years.
Who are the stakeholders in this, if I may ask? Because you need to tell each of these stakeholders that, look, our technology matters and it is real. A lot of people may dispute it also. Like one I mentioned, Panchayat.
Yes.
So you have to tell me.
See, there are primary and secondary stakeholders, right? The stakeholders who get benefited because of this solution and stakeholders whose onus is to solve this problem, right? Now, if you look at the primary stakeholder, the key stakeholder is the Ministry of Panchayati Raj in the center, whose onus is to solve these problems in the country, right? They have taken the responsibility to solve this. And this is one of our Prime Minister's pet project, So, because it benefits those 1.25 billion people. Then the second stakeholder is the Survey of India, which is an organization under Department of Science and Technology, whose onus is to get this implemented because this is highly technical in nature. Then comes the Panchayati Raj departments of the state, because they have to facilitate marking of the boundaries, deciding the ownership records and all, and linking it with this data set. Then the Panchayat itself becomes one of these stakeholders because they have to facilitate that groundwork, going house to house, ensuring everyone gives the input in an undisputed manner. Then the final stakeholder is the public, because you have to get involved in deciding your property with your neighbor and finalize it and get benefited from it.
And people settle their disputes.
People are so happy. See, today if I tell you that the rural land which you had no bank ready to back it, and today because of this scheme, you will have banks which can back you because of this undisputed record, and you will be able to settle your court dispute which is going on from decades in a matter of 1-2 years, and your next 5 generations will benefit. Your son can take a loan on that and go for an education, or you can take a loan and buy your farm machinery. Why would you not like to solve that problem?
Yeah, and
there is always going to be a minority
Yes.
with wrong intentions who will get impacted with the right job, right? But the majority is always getting benefited.
No, I think we should be happy, right? I mean, the fact that it's only 10 centimeters, I think people say, okay, it's only 10 centimeters, really doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Right.
And look at this part. This is something which has not been done anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So the whole scheme of this project, the whole process flow, what technology should be, how the data should flow, who will take what is. I'm not saying it is in the most efficient manner being done right now.
It'll get better. It's like telecom networks.
It's a matter of, you spend more time, you face more challenges, you improvise, right? There is an intention to solve the problem. That's the most important part. And you want to solve it at scale, not for only the marketing purposes, right? Majority of times such schemes are there. People just want to show them as a scheme, not implement. This is getting implemented on ground level. So
the benefits of which, like you said, generations will benefit. Now, they need not migrate to cities. They perhaps want to stay back in agriculture.
So this has scaled up further.
Yes.
I was just telling you that because of the potential which has been already delivered and substantiation which has been done about that this technology and process works and what we are getting is useful. Most of the state governments, land is a state matter, by the way. So most of the state governments have decided to extend the implementation to even the agricultural land and map the entire state. So while we talked about drone policy, there is another policy which was introduced, which was GIS policies, Geoinformatic Systems Policy. It says that, it lays down a vision that the entire country should be mapped at 10 centimeter resolution or better, which no other company in the world or enterprise in the world, whether government or private, can accomplish without the uses of either aircrafts or drones. No satellites can do that. So you will completely get rid of your dependency on companies like Google Maps or Maxars, which have been supplying these maps for such kind of applications. So it's a huge amount of data which gets generated within the country.
This is wonderful to me because the very reason UPI was born because of that.
Correct.
And therefore it's helped the Indian startup ecosystem grow. And same thing with the drones now.
Yes.
Right? Because of this platform that they're approaching.
So look at this part, that if you have a 3D data with such high resolution for so much geography of the country, especially rural, where the most of the development has to happen, where most of the population lives, the primary application right now is only land records, right? You can use the same data to plan water pipeline network. You can use the same data to basically build roads, sanitation network, schools, I would say green energy over the rural area, irrigation facilities,
forest protection,
internet,
yes.
So many things, logistics, addressing system. Same data set will become the enabler of so many different facilities. So you can at least If you look at the Gram Panchayat development program, we have more than 2.5 lakh crores allocated to it by the 15th Commission for purely development of Gram Panchayats. There are 9 sustainable development goals which one has to meet, which has multiple things from, let's say, child education to women empowerment to sanitation, Swachh Bharat and all that. At least 5 to 6 of them get served from the same data set.
Interesting.
Not
man.
one.
I mean, this is fascinating for me. You also mentioned forests, and hence I'm bringing it up. I heard in Tamil Nadu to increase the elephant corridor. These are ancient routes of the elephants. They use drones to remove all these private players.
Encroachments.
Encroachments. This is interesting. Is that possible to increase forest cover also?
So, I mean, the second part of the discussion which I would like to highlight is basically the power of the data.
Yeah, it's the data.
See, while you have machines, right, you need very specific set of drones with very specific capability, reliability in place, accuracy in place, cost effectiveness in place to be able to solve a problem for a country like India, because we are a very cost sensitive country, right? We don't have a massive amount of budget like any other Middle Eastern or developed nations to spend on the advanced tech. Your advanced tech has to meet the pockets of the population, right?
Yes.
But the power of the data is so much, you can use it for n number of applications. So what can happen in forest? Other than marking the boundaries and figuring out the encroachment, there are techniques which people like us have already developed, where you can even increase the afforestation, the health of the forest, and reduce the carbon footprint of the entire nation by just making these forests healthier. You can also reduce the floods in the country, which actually are depleting our topsoil. And if you look at the upcoming crisis in the world, it's not the oil crisis, it's the food crisis which is going to be there.
And the weather patterns changing.
The major reason for that food crisis is expected to be the erosion of the top fertile soil.
Is it because of overflooding?
Lot of reasons, lot of uses of chemicals, lot of flooding which are happening because of climate change.
Especially in the north, no?
Yes. And why these floodings happen? When it rains everywhere.
Yeah.
The water goes into the river, right? Floods the river, but flooding happens in the plain. So you will basically have all the plain areas, which is basically these fertile land, downstream fertile land, which will get flooded, right? And it will basically wash away the topsoil, fertile soil. So your land gets rendered useless.
So India is preparing for that too?
India is, I would say, India is in an early...
That's a great point, because a lot of the guys who are into sustainability would like this kind of an argument that you're bringing.
India is already evaluating the potential solutions and the way to implement it. I say 2 years down the line, you'll see these solutions getting implemented in India.
But do you want to be part of that?
We're already doing it.
Okay.
Most of these proof of concepts have been delivered by us. Six large forests were basically analyzed by us, solutions given. We're right now working with one of the large international corporation which is associated with the United Nations to deliver the solution for 3 more forests in India, and then not only limit our solution to Indian forests, because climate change is not a geographically limited phenomenon, right?
Yes,
if the temperature increases, it increases everywhere.
Yes, I agree.
So one need to really take this solution at a global scale, and it is being established in India so that we can establish the right way to implement it and then take it to the global scale, which is right now actively happening. And this allows you to, I told you about the problem. Now look at the solution, right? If you can capture most of the water within those hilly forested areas, then the amount of water going into the river will reduce.
Got it.
If you have more water in the forest becomes healthier. Flora and fauna flourishes, right? Afforestation becomes easier because you then don't have to go and water the plants for their survival, because there is natural water being stored within those forests. And the downstream impact on the floodplains will reduce. So there is a lot of cascading effect which can be created. It is a matter of putting together the right solution flow and implementing it at scale. And there is a lot of algorithms, data analysis which is in play. And we have developed all of it and proven it.
So you're a stack.
We do have, as a company, we have never looked at ourselves as a drone company. We have always looked at as a business insight company which is empowered by drone. It is important to build the drones because our sets of use cases or problems which we are solving are requiring the data to be collected in a very specific manner. And to collect the data in those specific manner, also to enable them to be done at scale, you need the machine to be having certain specific characteristics. So that enabled us to really innovate on the machine side. But it just collects data, no? It's a machine which is flying with any sensor, right?
Still have to analyze.
What people are keen about is the outcome. either it is we work with a lot of private enterprises in mining and infrastructure domain. It's not important for them that when the drone flew, what data it collected. What decision they could drive from that data and how it made their business more efficient is what is important here. So what we did is we developed the entire stack. There is hardware which collects the data. There is a cloud platform which processes all this data, and there is an analytics engine which analyzes this data and gives you some very specific business reports. Now, when you get these business reports as a decision maker, either at the ground level or at the top management level, you directly take your decision. You have qualitative and quantitative analytics and reports telling you what's wrong or what needs improvement and how much you can improve, where you can improve. So we're very specific about it. So it drives outcome immediately.
This is fantastic. I love the way you have so much clarity. People, now I want to talk about the 10-year journey. It's already 10 years, right? And we haven't met in 5 years. This must be the most, I mean, when you cross 10 years, you cross a barrier, they say, that your company is going to the next 10 years. You were incubated out of IIT Kanpur. You started there. You were a researcher there. And your co-founder is also from that pedigree.
Yes.
I've never met him, but you can call out his name. What's been the 10 years like for the both of you? And I liked a lot, and you were also telling me a lot of problems come and go, but that founder should get used to it.
Well, me and Suhas met before we founded this company, just because of common passion we share about robotics and flying objects. So, and we had complementary skill set and also complementary characters. So I'm a very extrovert guy, he's an introvert guy. I believe a lot on intuition and facing problems upfront. He's a guy who will basically work on pure data analytical approach. He will always like to quantify his steps. He will take a step back before facing any problem, analyze and go. So the combination works because you need that vigor and balance both. You cannot be too aggressive, curtailed by your intuition, and you cannot be always doing analysis paralysis as well. So we maintain that fair balance between us where I always ensure that we don't have lack of aggressiveness and openness towards new ideas. And he always ensures that when we pursue those, we are always very diligent about taking our steps in a quantified manner, not just I feel, you feel approach, which many times also creates problem within the founders, you know. So, and then we have faced huge number of ups and downs. When he started, no one knew that drones will be used for any such commercial applications. We opened up use cases in mining, land records, infrastructure, forest, agriculture, and this was all done where we actually farmed opportunities, nurtured them, created them from scratch, educated people about what more can be done.
At the time, everyone thought drones would be banned also.
It was banned. From 2016 to onwards up to 2019, the drones were banned. And just because one guy, one fine day decided that I'll do a marketing gimmick by showing drones in Mumbai delivering pizza, right? And all of a sudden, all the authorities, security agencies got panicked that if it can deliver a half a kg box of pizza, it can bloody deliver anything, right? And it could be dangerous for cities. So they just decided the safe side is ban it, right? And create a huge long list of approvals.
How did that hurt you guys? You guys are full on. When we met in 2018, I remember you were doing these.
So how did it hurt us? I think till 2017, we were very aggressive on technology. Yes. We had a couple of early stage rounds, raise, angel and seed.
You were doing mapping of land.
Correct.
Then, yes.
No, I mean, at that point of time, we were still building the hardware capability. I think in 2018 is where we realized that hardware is not the only thing which should be done to solve large scale problems. We have to look at from a problem perspective and build solutions. But you know, one thing which we realized is that if you have enough passion and commitment, then you end up being a cockroach. Right?
You were telling me this earlier.
So
founders have to be cockroaches.
Yes, and especially hardware startup founders have to be cockroaches in the Indian ecosystem. So we were like those. So we just decided, come what may, let people leave the team. Let us not even have money to buy food. Doesn't matter. We are not going to shut down our pursuit. We will pursue.
On both of you?
Extremely tough. Very, very stressful.
You just done a small round there.
You see, look at this, right? Your age, people are getting employed. Someone decided to start a fantastic t-shirt or a social media company. They're getting well funded, right? They're buying houses, and here you are still counting pennies to decide that where are you going to eat tonight.
Yeah, especially as a deep tech company. You're right, t-shirt companies are getting funded back then, 15, 16, 17.
It was e-commerce, food tech.
Food tech, yes.
So, and then when we approached investors, you know, we were assumed as science project. Or this is a science project because nothing has been done like that in West. So there is no benchmark. I don't know whether it is feasible or not. But luckily we got very, very interesting set of investors who believed in our ideas. We have 314, Startup
314
Exceed.
is amazing.
So those guys, like, they could sense that where this is heading, and they already accepted this fact that no matter what the ecosystem says, this is something which will solve tomorrow's problem. So let's fund this journey. But what happened after 2017 when the ban came in place, a lot of the follow-on investment rounds, they got completely distorted because, I mean, of course, if you don't have certainty around a particular sector because there's a lot of government control and ban on the sector, no one will invest. So, but that was I mean, we used to believe at that point that it was basically a curse on us.
It was, right? And you said you're an extrovert, right? You go out and talk to people. Was that when you said, I'm going to go talk to the government folks and tell them that
exactly
we are not
not
delivering pizzas?
So you have that saying, right? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Yes. That is exactly what happened with not only us, at least 10 more drone companies in the market, right? Across different use cases and sectors, whether defense or commercial, doesn't matter. So what happened one fine day, we were 4 or 5 drone company founders sitting in Delhi after attending a government or policy making meeting with one industry body, which is known for its policy intervention. And we came out and we started cribbing with each other, ki, what the hell, yeah, these guys don't understand drones. They don't know what this technology is, what its potential is.
So you just parked yourself in Delhi, yeah?
No. We went for a meeting there. Ki, let's go and tell them why we need this sector to be opened up. But then we realized that they don't understand the potential. And it's okay because most of those industry people and senior people have been spending their time into completely different type of use cases and technologies. How would you expect them to understand the nitty-gritties of drone? So we were like cribbing with each other, and we all of a sudden decided, chal yaar, let's create our own association, because we don't feel that
Drone Association is born.
That's where Drone Federation of India was born. 4 companies and their founders came together and they said, yes, let's put 2,000 each, register a company. Let's become the directors and try to convince others to become members. And then based on that, let's go to the government and say we want to represent, because if you go and directly give them feedback that you are doing BS,
they don't care because you're an individual.
You might hurt your own business, right? And you need a collective voice. You can't, I mean, even if you have good ideas, your individual ideas will always be perceived as your own personal business interest, unless those problems are representing the collective problem of the entire ecosystem, which is how these things work. So we founded Drone Federation of India. Then we got really good set of people within Drone Federation of India who were basically driven by that zeal to change. Zeal to change. So we got some full-time people who worked with us, who are working with us there. Now there is like 200 plus companies which are part of that federation. And we started working with the bureaucrats and the other stakeholders in the government and started educating them.
Okay, tell us a little bit about the bureaucracy when you meet them. A lot of the tech founders believe the bureaucracy may not be progressive, but there are progressive people who want to be informed, right? You mentioned that because of this one pizza delivery debacle that happened, they banned the entire drone ecosystem for 3 years. But these are bureaucrats who also want to listen to new ideas. It's not as if they're saying that, we don't want this, right? How should they approach these bureaucrats? How does it work?
I think the current ecosystem is very conducive of access, right? You can access them through many ways. One way is to simply write them. Write them without any
inhibitions, just write.
Yeah, without any expectations of outcome, just keep writing to them, because the moment they decide they want to solve a problem and you are giving very specific inputs, because see, one thing which bureaucrats don't like is that people going and cribbing to them. Crying to them.
That's a good.
Because they are there to solve a problem, right? They want people to come and join them in solving that problem, not come and complain, because they are listening to those complaints 100 times in a day. Some or the other guy is going and complaining to them about something which is not correct in the country. So I would say the first step is to take the ownership. Till the time you feel it is someone else's problem, it is never going to get solved. Take the ownership, say it is my problem, I will get it solved. Contribute whatever you can. Even if you write let's say 5 bullet points about a solution, that's your contribution. If you don't have money to go and meet the guy, right? Write those specific 5 bullet points. That itself will create a lot of clarity.
And they'll listen.
See, they are solving hundreds of problems. Look at the bureaucrat's journey, 3 years in one department, 3 years in another department. How can they really become as good as expert as you, who is spending, let's say, so much of time and energy on a particular problem statement or a sector? Got educated in that field, right?
Yeah.
So if you make it simple for them to understand, every new technology is a risk and also a reward. You launch first rocket in this country, it was a risk. It could have fallen on anyone's head or anyone's building. But it was also the success was also having a high reward. Today we have the cheapest telecommunication rates because of what was done a couple of decades back by ISRO and DRDO folks, right? It was a risk. Thousands of crores were burned, right? But there was a reward on the other side if you succeed. So if they know what is the reward, they are ready to take the risk. But do they know?
Did you guys know this? I experienced this first time.
We knew that from the first day itself, because the day we founded this company, before 1 year of that, we were clear the kind of potential which the drones will deliver for the civic society.
And that's what you communicated.
That's what we communicated, the kind of use cases, demonstrated, did POCs. And we were not alone. I would not take the credit alone.
I know.
There were other companies as well which were having the same sort of vision.
So what changed the deal, Vipul? I mean, in 2019, they suddenly said, okay, drones, we'll change the drone policy.
Awareness.
Okay.
It's just that they understood that definitely there is a threat. But the size of the threat is very small against the size of the opportunity which can be created. Till the time you're only looking at threat, you don't know the opportunity. You will always perceive things from that perspective, right? From that angle.
Yeah, for the benefit of our audience, that mapping of 660,000 villages, when did they start this and how come? And you said they've rapidly scaled up.
So this exactly started when COVID came in place.
Okay,
2020 Jan, they decided that they would like to do it.
Man.
All of a sudden COVID came, no one stopped. People were on the ground with drones flying in these villages in between the peak of the COVID, right? It was slow because of that, because you had a lot of mobilization issues and all that, but still it progressed. We finished 200,000 villages.
That's a lot of scale.
And this is not enough. There is drone for pesticide spraying, which is being promoted by the government. There is subsidy upwards of 50% being given there. Drones are now even monitoring the national highway on monthly basis to see the progress, status of the highway. We're talking about drones monitoring our oil and gas pipeline infrastructure, drones which are going to monitor renewable energy infrastructure for their health, wind turbines, solar plants.
So the government's okay with this public-private partnership, and it's doing very well.
I think government is pushing the public sector undertakings to adopt this technology because this is bringing business efficiency. So if you really want to become the leading country in the world, your businesses and sectors have to be very, very efficient. Your productivity has to be increased. So what we decided as a philosophy, right, we'll focus on 3 Ps. We call it a problem P and also the solution P. So these crystallizations of ideas happened after being in that foggy situation for almost 8 years, right? That you have productivity, we have people and planet-related problems, right? While you improve the productivity of any particular sector or a use case, ensure that you don't do it by taking away the power of people. You empower them. Reduce their effort, but make them more powerful. Empower them so that they can increase productivity by interacting with the machine, not being thrown out of the ecosystem by the machine. Because that's the basic threat someone will have. For example, when computers came, people thought we'll lose the job, but it empowered more people than actually people thought that it would be.
You're right. Apparently, this story goes in the 60s, the largest insurer in the country, public sector, all the employees went on strike saying computers will replace our job.
Correct. It actually empowered them. Same. Then the third element is the planet. You can always increase the productivity and empower the people, but are you planet friendly? Are you solving problems and the solutions approach is planet friendly or not? Because see, as founders, one thing we were very clear. Money will come and go. We are not going to take it away when we leave this planet, right? But purpose is important. Do your job for a good purpose. When you go look back, you should feel that you really left a good legacy behind in terms of making this whole planet sustainable, and especially the common people. Because we both founders come from a very humble background, low middle class background. Our daily struggles were not the struggles which generally upper middle class will face.
Does that what drives you? The fact that you had a struggle, is that what drives you? Or you're basically saying that's changed, but value systems are the same?
It changes the value system for sure, because every small thing then matters to you, right? I mean, if you don't eat well one night, you understand the value of food security.
Yes.
If you travel in a DTDC bus hanging on the door, you understand the value of public transportation system, right? If you are searching for water on the road and you don't get clean water from the tap, you understand the requirement or
because you can't buy a water bottle.
Need. Yes, you understand the need of potable water supply. And these problems are not solved only by the government. It's a collective responsibility. Are you as an entrepreneur really looking at only chasing valuations, making money, secondary exits and buying a Lamborghini, or you're also looking at doing that as well?
So value, not valuations.
Chase impact and value.
Brilliant.
Right? Valuation comes. If you're solving the... See, I say very simple thing, when food security will hit this planet, right? Or when climate change is hitting this planet, how much money you have in your bank is not going to matter. Do you have clean water in your tap? Can you breathe the air you're living in? So many rich people live in a certain geography in the country, right? Every particular season, they are struggling to breathe clean air. So much money is there. Why don't you throw it in the air and clean it? They can't.
Would you call yourself a social impact company?
I would call it as a economic, social, and governance impact company. It's a ESG. We fulfill all these three criteria, and both for private and public sector. So yeah, I mean, it happened naturally. We never decided that we'll be ESG focused company.
That's another journey of entrepreneurship, right? You start somewhere and you went from drone flying to you then start seeing outcomes, and now you're a proper ESG company. It's not the narrative, because that's how your business has evolved.
Boss, when we started, right, there was no concept of ESG.
Yeah, there was, absolutely.
It was just this very normal human consciousness that what is the purpose of your life? What exactly do you want to do in these next 20, 30 years? I mean, what would you be really proud of? 100 crores sitting in your bank? Maybe I will be happy with 10 crores because, 100 or 10 doesn't make any difference. You'll still have a house, you'll still have a car, and you'll still have food. The point is that how many people's life you impacted and what way did you impact? Was it positive, negative, addictive impact? Because you can always add convenience to people's life, but are you solving the necessity? Necessity is survival today for a huge amount of population, right? We have a very small population living in these tier 1 cities with a very different problem and business needs. But there is a huge amount of population which lives in this rural area, responsible for our food security, environment safety, and security. Are they empowered or not? Why have you so much of why do you have so much of population densities in city? No, because those areas are not survivable anymore.
I'm glad you called this out, and I think there are enough deep technology companies in India to actually grow larger. And there are enough focused funds now that are betting on deep technology. Will that change? Do you think you as an entrepreneur now, 10 years down, you also start going back to university and telling people that there is a future in deep technology? Because they read so much news, and it's all B2C or D2C, right? It's all consumer businesses and consumer tech. But sometimes I wonder, the guys who learn consumer tech can also build deep tech because they're software engineers nevertheless. But you are a great combination, right? You have a deep tech co-founder.
Yes.
Right?
So we have 15 plus patents filed, right? Also to tell you, we are profitable enterprise from last 3 years. The growth speed which we had was around 250% year-on-year basis for the revenue while we were solving these fundamental problems. So if you solve fundamental problems, growth comes because these problems are not limited to specific society in the country or the world, right? It is spread across the world. So I think the important part is that we need to stop looking at people as marketplace. That's it. It is your people.
So they're not a commodity. I got it.
You just don't look at them as a marketplace. They are you are them. Solve the problem.
But do they care for it is my question.
Who?
The people. Do they care about the solutions? You're making impact without them knowing. Like the panchayat example that you used. Land reforms. And you now have title deeds that are clear and will help generations, right? Do you think they should know this? Do you think they should be marketed?
I think it is a matter of awareness. Unless you really educate them well that why it is being done, what impact it will have, they will never realize this. And it has to be done in a really right manner. So awareness does a lot of magic, I would say. I've seen that magic happening over the last 10 years with government, private, public, everyone. So, and also it is about implementation. You can't be only theoretical about a solution, right? You will be so theoretical and you don't deliver. Unless you deliver and people really realize the benefit, they don't accept it. So acceptance, you may create awareness, but how would you get acceptance? By really delivering result. So when we come to delivery, right, now this is where our 3 P's of solution comes in, right? You focus on 3 important parts and that's how you build any new sector.
Let's, for the benefit of the audience again, it's people, planet.
It's productivity, people and planet on the problem side.
Yes.
What kind of problem do you want to solve, right? Unless a problem has these 3 important elements together, we feel that it's maybe not worth it. Maybe it has commercial value, but it doesn't have the people value into it, impact value into it. But how do you solve? When you're curating a new sector, there are 3 again P's which are involved. Product,
product,
people, process.
Process is very important.
Very important.
Very important.
So you can create a good machine, you can educate people and skill them, but how they interact is a process.
I'm learning that now, 1.5 years in.
Correct.
Process is so difficult to
And
implement.
if you look at making India as the leading country in the world, what we need to revive is that processes everywhere. How you build your roads, how you grow your food, how you harness your water, it's all process problem. Technology is there for all of this. It's like centuries old thing which is happening, right? It's the quality of the process which defines, right? So it becomes a very important element. So you have to think from all three dimensions, right? How are you really curating a product? How are you evolving that product with the changing scenario? How intelligent your product and robust your product
is. So there's
is.
an old system, there's a new system, there's an impact of technology. You have to take all this into consideration.
Correct. You have to balance it. And you have to keep on improving on all three aspects, because as product matures...
And you can't leave one and exclude the others.
It won't work.
The others. Won't work.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. That's why we have so much of user interface game going on in the mobile apps, right?
Yeah.
If you're not concerned about your users' behavior, which is people, the technology will not deliver the results.
Desired results, yes.
Yes. No matter how good it is, if the person is not able to use it effectively, and it's not, let's say, interactive enough, it won't give results.
No, this is fantastic. This has been the best interview that I've done because of the clarity. Again, I keep going back to that. Your applications also are for private people. We spoke a lot.
We do plenty of work with the private. So we work with a lot of mining, metal and power conglomerates. We have Tatas, Tata Steel, Adani's, JSWs.
What do they use you for?
So we help them improve the productivity of their sites and also decrease their carbon footprints, efficiency of the processes. So you know what happens, so what exactly we do,
Please talk about process there also. I think to understand them, you need to understand their process.
Correct.
And then you implement the process of delivering your solution.
So what we have done, you can't understand so many subjects alone as founder,
Absolutely.
right? So what we did is we understood the fundamental concept required to solve a problem, built a framework around it, and then we plugged in experts. So we have subject matter experts coming from different industry domains.
And you empower them.
Who come with the knowledge that what is the problem which this kind of data can solve. Then if you want to solve the problem, how the analytics should be done, and it should interact with the end user, which is the industry people, because they are from that industry. Using that knowledge, our engineers develop an entire solution, whether it is innovation or integration of a lot of various technologies. Ultimately, you have to deliver a solution in the way which users appreciate, right?
So that's how you do this.
That's how we do this. Now, when we talk about mining, infra, these are all volatile sites, continuous changes happening on the site. One important part which we do is that help them estimate the changes which are happening very accurately. With 99% accuracy, you can say exactly how much land has been excavated, moved, what dimensions have changed, your plan versus your actual situation, and the various other elements which exist on the side, like the roads, what is their condition, greenery, what is their condition. Because you have to maintain a balance between your productivity, make the site, let's say, people friendly, safe enough, and also when you're doing this, it should be environment friendly as well.
So they appreciate these things then, and also government regulations on top of that.
I think
right?
it's a matter of patience. They have started appreciating. For example, one of our clients when we interacted with them, again, we said that give us an opportunity, we would like to do a proof of concept. This is a 2-year backstory. They didn't believe that this kind of solution or accuracy can be delivered. When we delivered...
So you did that for free for them?
It was no cost, no commitment.
Wow.
So they got a third party, large, big 4 firm to really evaluate that this is really true or there is something wrong here.
Were you intimidated when they bring such guys in and say, okay, we are going to evaluate you now? Yeah, it's like an exam.
I think when you...
Go on.
Yeah.
Go on.
So I think when you really have been through so much of challenges over the last 7-8 years, right? Nothing intimidates.
Yeah, got it.
You just really become that hard enough that it really doesn't, no one intimidates. It is just like that. We know it works. We know it delivers. If it doesn't, if there is a problem, we are ready to solve.
Got it.
That's all. So keep solving it if it is not working as the way you're feeling. Because we feel that if you're committed enough to solve it, you will be. But we never got intimidated. But what happened is that we learned a lot. How they think, how they evaluate, how they take their decisions. So when we go today, we go more prepared that what we are going to face, how to convince them, how to justify that we meet these parameters which we are claiming, right? And initially, it is a journey any startup will have to take. You need a few anchor customers. The moment you have few anchor customers who take your solution by a elaborate validation, and then they start using it, and then they say publicly that they have realized the benefit, a lot of people will start following them. So that is the phenomena which is now happening with us. So that's the reason we are growing faster than we were prepared for. And that itself is a challenge now. While the rest of the world is, let's say, trying to drop their manpower, we have, in the last 18 months, we have gone from 50 people to 450 people. That's like 9x growth.
Sales side or product?
All across. Engineering, analytics, operations, sales.
And these are your own drones, right?
These are our own drones. So we have more than 150 of them flying almost every 3 minutes. One of our drone is flying.
The drone is made by you, designed and manufactured.
100%.
Okay.
Completely in house.
Batteries?
You can't make everything in India.
I got it.
Battery cells are not yet done in India. Chipsets are not done in India, so we are still dependent on import. But what happened in the last 12 months, we reduced our dependency on import from 70% to 40%.
Okay. What did you start making indigenously?
A lot of these components which were earlier not made in India because we didn't have right volume, we collaborated with strategic vendors and started developing them here. And when we stabilized the solutions, we made them part of our mainstream production line.
Okay, great.
So a lot of components around, let's say, the chipsets which were, or the boards, electronic boards which were there, we started doing it in India. Plastic parts in India, composite parts in India. Some specific set of, let's say, sensors, we were not doing it in India. We started doing that in India.
Nice.
So
this is good to know. I mean, this is, again, great interview, but I can't let you go without asking your personal go-to now in terms of knowledge. How do you spend your time? Do you spend time talking to people now to get knowledge, or do you read a lot? How do you spend time? Or do you take time off and watch some documentaries? Because you're well grounded in many things. How do you spend time? Give us some recommendations.
I mean, don't have one source of information and knowledge. Mm-hmm. One thing is, of course, the kind of people you interact with. Mm-hmm. So I have generally liked people with solution mindset, people who want to solve problem. And we don't only discuss problems at AEREO or the problems which AEREO wants to solve. I generally will spend a lot of time discussing solutions for rest of the problems with the society and how to go about it. I definitely read books, but I don't read too many books. I have a collection of books which generally my wife prefers to keep. She will love and she will get.
Reader.
She's more of a reader, but no, on different genre of books. I have lots of books, but then I read one book very slowly. I read one chapter, absorb, practice, then read another chapter. Something like that. I watch a lot of podcasts.
Okay.
Podcasts where founders share their experience.
Absolutely.
Right. And some informative documentaries are there. There are some YouTube channels which share a lot of statistical information around a lot of things happening in the world. I think another important part is that, when you struggle through that period of not getting funded, not really people buying in your idea, that allows you to look back and introspect on how to become self-sustainable. And that allows you to move away from a funded burning model where you don't have visibility of your profitability. So we decided that we should not be dependent on external funding because that's seasonal, dependent on so many external factors. Yeah. We know this is a problem to solve and there's a solution for that. We need to develop that. So become profitable. When you become profitable, the way you look at the world, the way you look at your own solution changes. And when you want to grow fast, something else also changes. Another thing which I personally do to keep myself grounded and also clear with my vision is meditation. It helps a lot.
How many hours do you meditate?
It's not in hours. I would say 20-30 minutes every day.
Which is good. People started to do 2 minutes of closing their eyes and going away.
It starts from there only. I mean, it was a struggle sitting for 2 minutes because you'll have all random thoughts coming in.
Absolutely.
Why didn't I say this to someone? Why didn't I do that there? But slowly you learn how to zero down. So,
any particular style of meditation, or is just yourself?
Yeah, I do certain specific practices. So I have learned some techniques from Isha Foundation.
Got it.
So Sadhguru Inner Engineering, so that I do almost.
A lot of founders love that.
Almost every day. I mean, 4 or 5 days in a week when I'm not traveling, I try not to miss it.
Do you know even Ray Dalio, the great investor from America, he suggests meditation. He's been doing it for 50 years, and I hope it helps.
Keeps you sharp and balanced.
No, on that note, all of you founders or young people watching this, stay grounded, stay sharp. And Vipul, I loved your sharpness in this interview.
Thank you.
Thanks for that clarity. And I know drones are now the mainstream. Now I know why. It's not just about flying them. It's about giving solutions to, what are they? People, planet, and productivity.
Productivity.
Great. Thank you guys for enjoying this. Thank you.